our first speaker series of the week. So my name is Sarah Tran. I will be the host of this event. Just to get things started a little bit, we're just gonna throw out a cute little activity for you guys. So I will be, oh, perfect. So Anthony has already dropped down the link to our Jamboard. And for those who has never used Jamboard before, it's going to offer chances for you to put down like photos and notes. There you go. Actually, let's do this. Yep, perfect. So as you can see, this is what the Jamboard is going to look like. It's going to offer a question, and we just want you guys to show us what you guys envision in a future with more women in it. So examples of what it would look like, pictures, words. Yeah, so take some time to add some pictures, what you guys envision, kind of like an envision board at this point. Yeah. Yep. So just an example, I put down a picture of like Obama talking to some young female students, and what I envision in like the future with more women, and it's just that more women in STEM related careers. I also put down that I hope to see more like all women councils or all women boards, whether that's like in other careers, like other STEM careers. All right. So take some time, put down your thoughts. All right. So we are going to start our panel at 2:10. So feel free to use the remaining time to keep adding more ideas. Okay. So for all the new people that just came in, we're gonna drop the link again to the Jamboard. All right. And basically, we want to see some ideas, some pictures even, of what you envision a future with more women to look like. So we've already had some people put down some ideas, but yeah, so simply this is like a vision board for what we want to see in the future. All right. So thank you so much for those who did put down their ideas. This Jamboard will still be up. So if you ever like think of an idea like throughout the event, so feel free to keep adding it. We're going to look back at it towards the end of this event also. So yeah. let's keep that going. All right, so let's get started with the panel today. So for those who missed it, my name is Sarah Tran. I am a biology student here at Skyline. I am also part of ASSC as a Commissioner of Public Records. I'm also part of STEM Center as a peer mentor. So, but enough about me. Let's start off with our panelists. Alrighty. Oh, actually, before that, let's talk a little bit about our event. So yes, this is a speaker series, and what that means is we are here to highlight women's and women's history. We're here to kind of talk about what what women have been through, but also their achievements, and yeah, we're just here to talk about women. So just to keep that going, let's move on to our panelists. Alrighty. Okay, so let's introduce each and one of our speakers today. So firstly, we have Dr. Emilie Hein, and she has been teaching physics here at Skyline College since 2014. And she's actually been leading the physics department since 2019. She currently holds a BS and an MS in physics from France and a PhD in in particle physics from UC Irvine, and she's earned a data science certificate from Stanford University. All right, that's pretty amazing. Hi, Emilie. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
All right. So to our next panelist, we have, I'm so sorry for butchering this, Herlene Grace Beltran. She is one of the newest full-time faculty members in the Skyline B EPP division, and she carries her passion for support, kind of student first and equity from her previous role in student services. Her various work experience and life lessons have molded her teaching style that link curriculum to student life. Oh, I love that. All right, well, hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you all for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for being here. All right, so let's move on to the next panelist. Next panelist is Soledad McCarthy, and she comes with over 10 years of experience in the financial service industry from broker deals such as Wells Fargo, Ad Advisors, Smith Barney, and Morgan Stanley. She's been the chief operating officer of an independent broker deal and hedge fund prior to Skyline College. However, when she came to Skyline College, she started the Guardian Scholar Program, kind of like a program that supports current and like former foster youth on campus. But yep, she has started this program before accepting a position in the business department. So she also has a passion for entrepreneurship, having owned her own business and supporting an upcoming entrepreneurs to amass their dreams. So Soledad is very, very passionate about equity, financial literacy, student services, and ending generational poverty through entrepreneurship. So right now, she currently teaches for CIPHER, which is the Center for Innovative Practices through Hip Hop Education and Research, and Umoja Learning Communities, as well as Promise Scholars. Yeah, so let's give a nice welcome to Miss Soledad McCarthy. Hello, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So good to
Yeah.
see everyone.
Thank you so much for coming. All right. And lastly, our last panelist, Maryam Khan. She is an engineering instructor here at Skyline, and she transferred from Skyline many, many eons ago, or so she says, and has a degree in civil engineering with a mechanical engineering minor, and her master's is in structural and earthquake engineering. She's actually one of the first women in her family to receive a higher degree in STEM. Oh, and she's also, an advisor for Wiser. Women in STEM and Engineering Represent Club. All right. Welcome, Maryam.
Hi, everyone.
All right. So now that we have all our lovely panelists here today, let's get to the good stuff and let's start about you guys. All right. So, all right, let's start with like a nice easy question. So, who or what inspired you to get into STEM or business? So I'll let you guys like marinate with that question a little bit. And then I'm gonna have Emilie go first when she feels comfortable.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me, and it's an honor to be here. And so in terms of thinking of who or what, I think I'm going to go with the what. A big reason for that is that there are not many who's in my field, so those are kind of tricky to find, since I'm a physics instructor, and I'm sure if you think about a physicist, you're not thinking of somebody who looks like me. So I had that problem growing up. So I think the what is more the actual topic. I think I was always fascinated about the universe, learning how it works, getting lost in the night sky and trying to figure out what it was hiding, all the mysteries behind that. And I think just an interest in general of asking all those why questions and trying to answering them. So I think that would be what inspired me, just is essentially trying to understand where we live and how it works in general. So.
Yeah, I think that's like honestly very true that it's very hard to find women in like your career, especially like physics. Oh wow. But I'm so glad that, you were able to move past that.
Oh, hopefully
Yeah.
we're changing that, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what this channel's for. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So let's have Grace go ahead and talk about her experience next.
So I actually started college as a biotech major. So I was really interested in the STEM field. But I was working about 3 jobs with myself through college. So at one point I was spending as much time either in school or at like my retail job. And, there were just things that I just didn't make sense to me. So I was like, let me go into business, because like a lot of the things that were happening to me as, somebody who was younger and, as a female in a male run industry, I just felt like I had to learn more so that I could to really start to advocate for myself. And I actually just started falling in love with like HR and just business type classes. And for some reason, it just started clicking in my head. And I just stuck with it because it just became something I was really passionate about. And I could link a lot of what was happening in my life directly to the course content so that I could actually use the content that I was using to better my life. And now I'm actually using it to hopefully better the lives of others. So.
Oh, that's so nice. That's so inspiring to hear that, yes, there's a lot would have to do with like men run, situations, and it's so great that you went and challenged that, and here we are now, you know? That's awesome. All right. All right. So let's hear from Soledad McCarthy, please.
So for me, I would say my entrepreneurial journey, like it started when I was a kid. Like I was always a hustler. I was always the kid that was like selling Hello Kitty stationery at school and getting in trouble for it. So I always had a side hustle going on. I grew up in a single parent household with my mom and my grandmother, and my mom wasn't around as much because she was working. And so I and my aunt lived a couple doors up. So I was raised by these like 3 really strong women, both my sister and I. But I am the first in my family to have a college degree. And so, they always pushed me, and I knew whatever it was, I was going to get a degree. And I would say what pushed me to go on and continue to keep going on, it's I guess a what and a who. So I went to SI, St. Ignatius, on scholarship. And I remember a teacher telling me and my 2 best friends, who were both women of color as well, that like he was surprised that we even graduated from high school, much less that we were graduating from college, because we had come back to tell him like we were so excited that we were graduating from college. And he was like, oh yeah, I didn't think that you 3 would do that at all. And as a result from that conversation, like I went on to get my master's. My other best friend's a lawyer. My other friend was a graphic designer. So sometimes it isn't like a love story that brings you here. It's, really realizing that, wow, if I was being told this at one of the best schools in the city, then what's happening to people who are at, some of the not great schools in the city and everywhere else. So it just, I've always loved business. And I think when I realized that I could accomplish that, I think that's when I realized just really how much I loved it.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm so sorry you had to go through, being told that, you couldn't do something or that you weren't expected to do something like that. But yeah, here you are now, and I'm glad that you're here to, show and tell your experience for other, women in color. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's hear from lastly, Maria.
So I guess for me, a lot of it, I went through the hurdles of trying to figure things out and being indecisive and not feeling like I knew what I wanted to do or doubting myself. But ultimately, I found myself going through this little pathway into engineering, and then I basically like launched. And once I figured out this is what I wanted to do, it all made sense to me. Apart from that, a lot of the hard work and the persistence of getting everything done, like with all STEM classes. But as I look back to see like where did this start from, like where did my interest in seeing how things work, how did things get put together, how, like I feel like for engineering a lot of it is the how, like how can we make it work, how can we make it support, how can we make a structure support so much load, or how can we make an engine work. And when I look back at my early childhood, I was always playing in the dirt in the backyard, taking things apart, getting scolded for putting things in the VCR because I was curious. And that's really what I feel like where my initial spark came from, is my really young, pure, innocent curiosity that I think we all have respectively with our fields.
That's so nice to hear. Yeah, that's very true. Like, there's a lot that we experience when we're younger, and it's definitely really interesting to see how that could develop into like something more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next question. Some of you guys have already like talked about it a little bit, but yeah. So what is one challenge you faced on your journey, and how are you able to overcome it? Let marinate a little bit. Let's switch things up a little bit. Start with Grace, if you don't mind.
Um, so one of the challenges I honestly think was, well, the very first one was really just trying to go against the mold, or the norm. For me, as a Filipina, first generation, the ideal position, job, career was in the medical field. So really starting school, right? Like I said, I started with biotech and I was like, that's somewhat close to medicine. Like that, I could do something with that, that my parents could be proud of. But then I think it became about not being afraid to be myself, to kind of go against the norms. I still have those questions of like, oh, so, do you have a job? And I was like, yes, I definitely have a job. I have an MBA. Like, but I from the outside world, it's a struggle. I think for me, the hardest struggle is within my own community, within my own family, my folks, my friends, and really just trying to find that support of, this is what I really care about. This is what I really want to do for the rest of my life. And yes, I might not have every single point of interest from here until, the day that I retire, set it out on a map. It's being able to just focus on the now and what I'm passionate about now, and being okay with where I am. I really do care and love about what I'm doing, but there's those questions that people kind of give you sometimes, or those looks when you talk about what you're doing and you're like, oh, you're a professor, oh, you're in business, oh, you do this. And I was like, where are these biases coming from? Why are you looking and asking me that way, where at some point I have to be like, you know what, I'm just going to throw all your side commentary to this away, because it's not, it shouldn't be affecting how I feel and how passionate about and proud I am about what I do. So a lot of it is, whether it's your own family or the world and society telling you that you're supposed to fit this mold. And I think, with a lot of the women, not just here, but a lot of women in life in general, it's about being able to break free, and really finding that strength and that confidence within yourself to allow yourself to do that. And, yes, some of us might be afraid to fail, but just going for it anyways, right? Like, because even in failure, you kind of just learn where you're supposed to go, right? Like I failed 2 years of biotech and I was just like, okay, so this is obviously not where I'm supposed to be. But really accepting that and being able to move forward.
Man, that is really, really powerful. Yeah. Like even when you were like the first thing you said was like, yeah, my struggle was breaking through the mold. Like the other panelists were like, yeah, you're right. That was definitely a big struggle. hmm So it's really good to hear. Oh, it's really inspirational actually. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So next let's hear from Soledad.
Yes, all the things that Grace said. I'm laughing, so it's like just one. I mean, being a woman in finance, when I first started, particularly at one of the branches I was at, there were very few women that weren't like client service associates, and very few just people of color in general. And so I had to figure out, one was, well, what was my goal, right? And I think for all of us, one of the things that we just have to figure out in every job is, okay, what do I want my end goal to be? And I knew my end goal was to really give people the same opportunities that I had, but to do it in a way that they didn't have to struggle. So by the time I left Smith Barney, we had hired, we had changed the dynamic of the way the branch looked. I mean, it was young people, people of color, women. We were hiring financial associates. We were hiring up current, assistants into those financial advisor positions. So the challenge was really, when I first got there, I was like, well, who is she? And just realizing that, it was okay. If you don't like me when we first get there, it's okay. Because here's my ultimate goal. I would say one of the challenges that working in higher education, coming from industry, is a lot of the bureaucracy and being told like, well, if you keep your head down, then, A, B, and C could happen. And I'm not a keep your head down person. So, that can be a challenge, particularly in a lot of our fields, is feeling like, oh, there's only room for one woman and in this field. And I've never been that person. So I do want to say, like, the women on the panel that you chose, it's amazing, because these are actually these are like my strength. Like, we, through COVID, Zoom all the time, like weekly. We support each other. I mean, Emilie, we know each other's kids. We know Maryam's nephew. I also want to shout out the women that aren't on the panel, but are here to support, like Pia and Chicago. Literally, we know each other's families. So it's really, really important to get rid of all those stupid old school, like there's only room for one woman. There's room for all of us, and for, bringing up each other. And literally these women have brought me up so much from horrendous times. So I do want to thank them.
Oh, that's so good to hear that there is support, especially support with women and by women, because it's definitely true what you said, that a lot of people think oh, it's very competitive here, only one person is allowed, or one woman is allowed here, but clearly that's not the case, what you said. That's good. Right. Great. So next, if I could have Maryam speak.
All right. I feel like if I can just copy and paste what Grace and Soledad both said, I resonate so much with what both of you said individually. And especially, Grace, when you said going against the mold, because I feel like, especially for my field, many times people have asked me, what's it like, being in a man's world? And automatically, I feel like there's this deficit thinking for women and expectations for us and where we belong. I'm not in a man's world. I'm in Maryam's world. This is my world, and hearing that and seeing that that's basically what the external expectations are from me, I would say it's tough. And even just going back to when I was in school, when I was indecisive between majors, when I took a long time to transfer, family put a lot of pressure on me. Oftentimes in different cultures, I feel like, especially with immigrant relatives, that we compare ourselves to our friends and their kids and their upbringing. So if so-and-so's daughter is successful and she has her degree, why don't you have yours yet? I literally had a conversation once with my mom where she asked me, like, why can't I pick an easier major? Because I felt, I guess she just wanted to have something, you know, proud to say about me. Well, she's very proud now, but it's just, I feel like a lot of us have to carry that too. Just the intersectionality of, you know, being women, being somebody of color, having immigrant family, having a heritage that does not, like being like the only one in the classroom that's not just a woman, but somebody who's Pakistani, somebody who has like a different culture. You really do feel like the odd one out. But again, I have to remind myself that I'm not in their world, I'm in my world. And this is where I belong because I decided to be placed here. And just like what Soledad said, even though like there might be one or two women in this field and in that field on our campus, across the campus, we found each other. And even during this pandemic, when I have not seen Soledad in person in over a year, we connect every few weeks to just laugh and let it out and, you know, just share and embrace one another. And some of the students in the room right now and some of my colleagues in here too, I'm also talking about you. I feel like we kind of, and maybe it is a women's sisterhood thing, but we kind of find each other and we find camaraderie and we find unity with one another. Again, I think just going back to what Grace said, it's not going against the mold, it's creating our own mold.
Yes, that exactly. I feel like that's definitely true what you said, that this, like, being a woman of color and being like part of an immigrant family, that's not something that people really expect that to be part of your struggle, but like you said, it is definitely a huge influence sometimes. But I'm glad that you were able to break through that and, you know, like you said, develop this kind of like sisterhood with everyone. So lastly, if I can hear Emilie, your response.
Sure. So it's hard to follow this because I'm like, I feel like I'm choking up a bit. I'm trying not to cry because honestly, this is, I feel like this is all of, I mean, I can relate to everything that you just said. And the sisterhood, absolutely, you know, in terms of especially going through this past year, you know, we've needed it. And what I want to say also in terms of sisterhood, and like that seems to say, okay, we have our sisters, but you know, the same way that throughout my whole STEM career, I had to be one of the bros. I feel like it's not just the women, right? Like you can all be our sisters, right? Like I think that it needs to be a thing of, you know, we're all there for each other, but in this kind of supportive, kind, empathic way, which which you know, I do have a sister and I have a brother, and I feel like they're very different relationship, but I you know, finding that sweetness of like just having that support and family, you know, on campus, on our virtual campus. And I want to thank you all for saying this, because I appreciate you so much, and everybody here, and whoever else who is going to be listening, because again, you know, we are here thanks to you all, students. I mean, what are we doing here, right? If it's not for you. And I think when we went into crisis mode last year, when it was like, okay, we're shutting down, I think it's really, you know, we kept going strong because we want to show up for you. You're showing up for us too. And I think it's so important. And so if I go back to the actual question, but I think it's all part of this, right? You know, how we face these challenges. I think one thing is that we stick together. And as you say, there doesn't have to be one of us, because it's a lonely space otherwise, right? If you can't talk to anyone about the struggles you're going through, because you're the only one having those struggles. And once you start sharing and you realize that even people in other fields are going through the same exact struggles, and you realize, oh, it's not me, so I'm okay. And you know, we can sort of find ways that we've worked through some of those and help each other out. So I'm a physics teacher, and it might shock you, but my worst subject in high school. I grew up in France, but in high school, my worst subject by far was physics. I was terrible at physics. So I told you, I wanted to learn about the universe and all of this. I had this little, I had found in a magazine, and I hid it from everybody. I had a little, it was like how to become an astrophysicist. And I had like that hidden in a book. And for some reason I didn't want to share because I felt like it was too big for me and that people would make fun of me for dreaming big. I'm not an astrophysicist, but kind of close. I'm a particle physicist. So I'm just saying, don't be afraid to dream big, because here I am, right? I had my PhD in physics, and I think if I told my high school teachers, they would probably not relieve me, honestly. I just remember just feeling defeated and overwhelmed as I was going through high school and just failing those courses, because it was sort of like, what's wrong with me? And I wanted to learn, but there was something that was not working, obviously. But I think Maryam mentioned that it's also the expectation there. I think there was sort of there was no expectations for me to actually be successful in that field. So nobody would push, because it was almost normal that I would fail. Why would I be successful in this field where, because obviously I would not go to college to study that, because, look at who's going to college to go in physics or related fields. And at the end of high school in France, in order to graduate, you have to pass this massive exam at the very end. It's like 2 weeks of, long, like 3-4 hours exams on each of the subjects. It's very intensive. And I got really scared that I was going to not pass because of physics. I also kind of wanted to challenge myself, because it's like stuff I want to learn. Finally, I need to learn it before it's too late. And I think at that point I realized, okay, so this is overwhelming, and I need to just break it down and just forget about my fears and forget that I'm not good at this, because at that point I had convinced myself that I was just not good at it, right? That was just it. I was just not going to be good at it. So I tried to forget about that, and because I had to finish, I wanted to graduate high school, and so it was a matter of like going one step at a time, so breaking it down and do one thing and then another, and then and that was maybe 2 months before graduation. So there was a lot of little steps, but in the end, so physics was, I was really bad, and the other subjects I was okay at, and I ended up doing the best at physics on my high school exam, which totally surprised me, but also gave me confidence that, if you have the will, you can do it. And sometimes you just have to, it's going to be really hard, and you may not believe it, and you may need to look for those people who believe in you, but I feel like moving forward, it was always the same thing, because anytime I would step into a room, like in grad school, and you're the one woman, and everybody's looking at you like, what are you doing here? You're probably meant to go to, like, the other building across the street. And it's a matter of like just challenging that, and just standing on your 2 feet and being okay being there, and not freak out, because it can be really challenging and really hard when, again, the expectations are very low, or worse, the expectations are that you're going to fail. And I think remembering that you're in that space for a reason, and you bring a lot more to that space because you bring something new and different. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you. But yeah, that was very inspiring what you said. It's definitely true when, you think that you're not, capable of, going through or, being part in like a certain degree or a certain career, but seeing how you're able to really break that and keep building upon that to even challenge yourself, not just like the society that you were going to be in, but like yourself specifically. It's really good. It's like really strong to hear. It's really it's inspiring. Um, so I guess talking more about inspiration, the next question is, what would you say to women and girls to inspire them to pursue business, STEM, entrepreneurship? We've been talking a little bit about like struggles, and I don't want to scare them away. So what are some things that you would say to kind of re-inspire them to join? Um, so let's have Maryam go first this time.
Darn. I'm kidding. So I feel like that's a really tough question. But I would think, kind of going back to what I said earlier, like way in the beginning of our session here, that a lot of where I see what I like to do now stems from like early childhood curiosity. So I would encourage anyone to think about that. If you found that as a child where you're purely innocent and not, told or forced into these molds, what did you like to do? That might be your drive. But also I would say that if you're looking at like the younger generation, if you have younger siblings, if you have a niece or nephew or cousins or even your friends, and if they have kids, what kind of shoes would you like to see them in? Because you can first put those shoes on, and so they can see somebody in that field. I didn't have an older sister in engineering to look up to, but I see that in my role as an instructor, as an advisor, but also like just the different youth outreach programs we do, that we essentially are those big sisters for those younger sisters. And I think if you look at it that way, in which you're kind of just supporting community and establishing that this is you and your community and others can follow you, that might help encourage you to pursue that. I feel like a lot of times we have a lot of external noise. We have the family pressure. We have the, did I do it on time pressure? Like, okay, it should take 2 years to transfer. Why am I here after year 6? It's still fine. That means you're just finding your route. And any time you try to, you make a journey and you make a trajectory and you make that attempt, if you realize that's a dead end, you can still turn around and then find a different trajectory. And I think for those of us that have gone about that and had that trial and error of figuring things out, we have a lot more perspective and insight for where things can go for us. And I think that also helps with like embellishing and enhancing our perseverance, because we've been around and we've had those ups and downs, and we've always sprung back. No matter how many times you've made an attempt and you didn't hit that like bullseye target, you still had a second chance afterwards. So I think honestly, just going with what you enjoy, trying to follow that, thinking about how you could possibly be an influence for those in your community that look up to you. But also, like, if you feel like this is not for you, then don't worry about it. Try something else. Make your own mold.
I love that. I love the part where you said like if you couldn't like find like a role model that looked like you, then you can be the role model for other people. Like you can be that instead of trying to find someone like that. And I feel like that's really strong, just because it's true what you said, that there's not a lot of people that look like us, women of color. So yeah, thank you for saying that.
But we are them right now. So
This
that
is true.
means going back to your Jamboard, this is basically what that's going to look like for the
Yes.
future generations.
Exactly. Oh, it's connecting. All right. Next, if I can have Soledad talk, please.
Okay. So what would I say to women and girls to inspire them? Is that, yes, so much of what Maryam talked about, and just knowing that you can do it, and you will have people who will tell you you can't do it. And understanding that a lot of that comes from their own inadequacies and their own fears and maybe their own lack of self-esteem, and having that self-talk, the positive self-talk with yourself every day, and just saying like, yeah, I got this, I can do this. Surrounding yourself with finding those inspirational women and friends in your life that will talk you off a ledge when it's a really bad day, but also will hug you and let you cry and let you be your authentic self. Often I will say, often a lot of the struggles have been from other women that I've and I've learned as I've gotten older to really feel empathy for them, because when I've looked at who they are and their backgrounds, it's like, oh, well, you don't have a strong female network, like you don't have your person or your people, and so that's why, right, like that's why you don't understand the strength that we bring each other. So instead of like taking like the route of being angry at them, for me it's always like, okay, well, I can show you like what it could be like, right? Like I'm going to be empathetic towards you in your situation. And understanding that we have so many opportunities to educate people and to speak up, and if it doesn't always have to be from a place of like aggression, is often you will have situations where people will go like, I didn't think you would do this. Every semester when we're in person, it's so funny. I walk into my classroom and there's always like some male who's older who walks in and is like, what is this classroom? Like, what is this? Because we've changed it to have a very entrepreneurial feel. And they'll go like, oh, I wonder who the instructor is. I'm like, it's me. And I've definitely had people who are like, you. And so instead of angry, it's like, yes, it's me, and I'm gonna change the way you think about women in business. So I think we have that opportunity to do all those things, and just again, you can do it 1,000%. Don't let anybody hold you back from what you're meant to do. There's a lot of people who have pathways of what they thought we should do, but think about like what you were meant to do. And I love being around students. Like all of you students have like I always tell you, brought me life through in just being at Skyline, but particularly through the pandemic, like being on those Zooms and having students add to discussions and be present and have your cameras on and talk and be vulnerable together. Like it's been, I've learned just as much from students as, I hope that I've given.
Yeah. I love how, you talked about just having that type of influence, because like most of you guys said, like, look, this is the future. Or, like the influence that you guys are spreading now to the people in the audience, like even me, like that's going to be the future. So it's, yeah, thank you. Um, so next, if I can have Emilie speak.
Yes, thank you so much again. I agree with so much of what both Miriam and Soledad just said, and I almost there's so many things I could almost have said like what you said, and even though we're in different fields, I feel like it applies. And I agree on the I have seen it too, like when sometimes you're hoping that there's a woman kind of ahead of you who's going to help, and then that hand is not there. But again, it's understandable, because that it's coming from years of getting beaten by the system and everything that would but I feel like we're in a new space too, right? There's more of us. We're helping each other out a lot more. I see that a lot more. Like, for example, I mean, Soledad is really good at speaking up for others. And I think that's something to also remember when you're in that space, right? Because you get to, if you ever get to a space where you start having more of a voice, and I think it's really important not to forget that, you know, you can make a huge difference from somebody, you know, the same way that maybe you were hoping that somebody would when you didn't have much of a voice, maybe depending on where you were at. So I think it's something that to always remember, you know, how much power do your words have, and how much can you do, and how much can you help somebody who does not have that power. And it doesn't mean, you know, power, I feel like is a bit tricky because it comes with this kind of very, like, it's a loaded word, because and I think it's also in the way that we see it right now, because so you know, I teach physics, but I'm also the lead of the physics department. And I remember when I started off, it was a lot of, be careful, you're too nice, and that kind of thing. You know, people are gonna walk over you. And to me, it was a very conscious decision to be myself and be nice and, you know, be kind. And I mean, and, you know, if I failed, that failed, but I didn't want to turn into somebody that, or something that I don't, you know, respect, and I can't, you know, and I'm sure, you know, I make mistakes, and I don't always, you know, maybe I'm not always kind, and, you know, I try, but, you know, you never know sometimes. But I think it's worked. And I feel like we've had, actually, within the physics department, we've had a really good working relationship. We've been able to do a lot of new things that, you know, in just 1 year we came up with so many different ideas, because people were listening to each other, and it was not a competition. It was like, hey, I want to hear you out, and how can I help with that great idea that you have, and not like, oh, well, I didn't come up with that idea, so that's not, you know, I mean, there's a lot of spaces where you feel like your voice could matter and make a difference, and it's frustrating when it does not. And so I think when we're in positions where we can, you know, try to hear those voices, I think we should try as much as possible. And I think so a lot of, you know, what I would say is show up as yourself, and sometimes it is so hard, but I think just remember that, you know, you're part of making, you know, creating those changes, right? By staying yourself, because if you show up and then you just blend in and become the next person who was there or before, well, first of all, you're not going to feel comfortable very long, because you can only, you know, hide so long who you are. And also, you know, the whole point, I think, in terms of diversity, and it's like hearing those voices, hearing a different perspective, you know, when there's new technology coming, that it's not geared toward one particular group, and that it's actually for as many people as possible. And I think that's really what I you know, I hope to see, and I would encourage, and I think finding your people, and people who are going to be your allies throughout in your journey, and finding mentors, I think, in those as you go up. I don't know if it's a ladder at that point, but as you make your, you know, I think maybe the theme is like, make your mold. So as you build your, you know, you create that space for you.
Yeah, I love how you meant, like, the piece of advice would be to, you know, be yourself, because that's not really something you would expect to be like an issue or like a struggle at all. But I'm glad that that's like
Yeah.
a thing to be reinstated.
And it's silly. It could be as just the way you dress. I mean, so many times in different settings, I didn't know how to show up and how people would, and in the end, it's like, I just want to just dress the way I want to dress, and not because somebody is going to not like what, or, it's not going to be able to, anyways.
Right, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, and lastly, we'll hear from Grace.
So definitely a lot of great information and inspiration from everyone here. And, I want to say thank you all, because like students, faculty, staff, everybody who's in here, you are all honestly an inspiration every single day. So, like Emilie said, like find your mentors. And I'm saying that with the emphasis on the S, mentors. Don't just look for one, right? There's not going to be one person who is completely 100% perfect and is there for you every single step of the way on this journey. This journey is not just about you being able to find yourself, but finding your, those other folks who are kind of just going to be on the sidelines, just kind of, cheering you on and providing you with some perspective, right? And I say perspective because it's your life, it's your lived life. Nobody has any power to devalue or take away the validation of your lived experiences and what you know. And I say that because I joined business because I was like, this is my experiences. This is what I know. This is wrong. I am not only going to create the mold, but I'm going to fight against the mold that was already put in place for us. Like Sarah said earlier, the future, right? Like you all are definitely the future, and what the future holds for business or STEM or for any other degree, major, or even industry is completely unknown. So, and I don't know if I'm going to get, in trouble for this, but the reality is when we're teaching you in class, we're teaching you things that have already happened in the past, even things that happened yesterday. Guess what? Yesterday was the past. So what we could teach you is things that you could carry with you so that you could then take it to the future. So, again, our dean says to allow yourself some grace. And I'm not just saying that because it's my name, but, allow yourself that opportunity to fail. Allow yourself the opportunity to kind of just pause and step back and go, you know what? I appreciate the struggle that I have survived and the things that I have done so far. And that should prove either to yourself and show that you are more than what sometimes you give yourself credit for. Don't be afraid of the failure. There was a quote that I've heard, and I forgot who I heard it from, and I apologize, is failure is not a permanent condition, right? It is in those failures and those moments that we fall, where we kind of stop and cry sometimes, right? Like we're not supposed to show tears in our world because we're supposed to be strong females and we're not emotional that way, but like cry and allow yourself that opportunity to be like, is this where I want to go? And ask yourself, is this worth it? Because most of the time, if you're going through the struggle and you're pausing to go, is this worth it? It probably really is. So go back to some of those folks who, even if it's just like, I had Maryam for one class, but Maryam taught me something and she ignited something in me. So even go back and be like, oh, I haven't spoken to Maryam in a year, but go back because, those folks who remember you, they're going to be your allies. And, it could be female, male, whatever it is, like and it doesn't even necessarily have to be in your same industry. Right? Like we all are going through our own different struggles, and all of those are very much valid, but really finding those folks to kind of just help you realize, again, like sometimes for me, it's just soul going, Grace, do you know what you've already done so far? Like you've already been successful. Like, why don't you see that? Like, even hearing that, oh, you're, even being invited to panels like this is an inspiration to me where it's like my story, my experiences are valid. And again, like Miriam said, breaking against that, making your own mold, breaking the mold that existed and going, you know what, I'm going to create something new. I'm going to create a position for myself. And, as business and entrepreneurs, that's what a lot of entrepreneurs have done, was like, nope, that mold doesn't fit. I'm going to go and build myself something else. And that's what also has happened with a lot of science and things where it's like folks are just like, this is unacceptable. And we have to be able to get together and, again, finding those mentors and, again, allowing yourself that ability to, just falter just a bit. And then be able to find those folks who are going to kind of, sometimes you won't even notice who's picking you up, and you'll look around and be like, oh, where did you all come from? Um, so, just allowing yourself that and understanding like the future is so unknown. So don't tie yourself to this exact like ideal of what, you're going to be and everything. It's just allow yourself the opportunity to go through the journey, and, keep your eyes open for those folks who are going to be on the sidelines, just cheering you on and supporting you.
Yes, I really appreciate you telling everyone here today that there's really nothing wrong with mistakes, and if anything, mistakes drive you towards the path that you eventually will be on, and hearing that is very like inspiring. And so I guess yeah, just to move on a little, uh, let's now take a picture with the audience, right? And for everyone who also found what you said very inspiring. Yeah. Yay.
So, good job. Y'all are amazing. I'm so happy to be working with like amazing colleagues at Skyline College. That is you. That is all of you. If y'all didn't know who I was talking about. Now this is our time for a picture. If you would like to turn on your video and just take the snapshot with us, we would love to post this on our socials just to let everybody know we're here. I'm a two-picture type of person, so if the first one doesn't turn out well, you can definitely change the angle or window. All right. Alrighty, let me get set up. Yes, fix the hair, fix whatever you need, get the angle. You already know what it is. So give me a second. Alrighty. 3, 2. Oh, there we go. We got some label. 3, 2, 1. Alrighty. Second picture, change if you need to. I'm gonna do one of these things. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you. Back to you, Sarah.
Alrighty. And firstly, I would like to say thank you to all the panelists and everyone who came today out of their busy schedules. Thank you for making time. And I hope that you guys have, experienced, felt the stories of our panelists today. To talk more, we have a Padlet that actually has a bunch of resources and a future or the events that we have this week. Here, let me pull that up for you guys. Alrighty. Yep. So, yep. So the Padlet will also be linked down in this Zoom chat. So we do have our calendar for all the events that we have for the rest of the month, and then we have the Zoom links for each event accordingly. Yep, so this is part of a 3-day speaker series. So today it was STEM health, business, and entrepreneurship, but we do have more the rest of the week. So if you guys are interested, please come stop by for the rest of the week. And then we also have some other further activities that are presented for Women's History Month. We have other Padlets talking about other women's stories and their struggles, also their accomplishments. There are even interviews of women part of ASSC, not even that, but more. So if you wanted to listen to more stories or read more stories, here's a place for it. And in case you missed me reading like people's bios or bios of this week, we also list them here. So if you guys want to see that and read it and just, connect with them even more on a different level, it's also here. And since this week we're focusing on meta majors, we have a bunch of resources here for each meta major. So if you guys are more interested about your jobs, here it is. Alrighty. Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming, for